This is Forge Daily with Mackenzie Barwell on the Forge Audio Network.
Welcome to this episode of Forge Daily. I'm your host, Mackenzie Barwell, checking in August 2nd, 2024. Match day -2 for Forge FC once again. This weekend, they'll head to Winnipeg to face Valour FC on Sunday. Here to talk about that game, some standout performers, and of course, Forge FC's current form is Steve Milton. Okay, Milty, we're back, finally!
Finally. Summer holidays, maybe.
We're both too busy cottaging in the little time we do have off.
That's it. This is it. Well, it's great to see you.
I'm happy to be doing this with you again, Milty. Today we'll talk about the upcoming Valour match for Forge, but because it's been a while since we checked in with each other, I want to start with your thoughts on just Forge's recent performances, because in the conversation we had earlier today, we just mentioned how much they've been scoring in comparison to our previous chats.
Well, yeah, and it was a really good thing to come up with a blank sheet, Mac, on the last one because they'd been having those games where they dominate and somebody dropped the ball in the box. That's everybody's theory against Forge, drop them in the box and as much as they can. I mean, but to come up with a clean sheet in their last game and 3-0 against the Wanderers, and put the Wanderers down a little bit, of course, but yeah, they've scored. I'm just taking a look at here now. They had 3 against the Wanderers. Okay, they had 1 against Cavalry, but that was there in Calgary, and that's always a tough place to play. A big game against Pacific with the 2-1 game. That was outstanding. Of course, the Toronto game, they only had 2. They could have had more. And then 3 against Vancouver. And before that, 3 against Ottawa. That's a lot of goals, which means they're starting to hit the net more. And then they've never lacked for chances. There seems to be a little bit more finesse, and the finesse, I think you could spell K.W.A.S.I.
I knew you were going there.
Yeah.
Yes, I was going to say that's the problem here has never been opportunities created, and Coach Bobby has emphasized that time and time again. It's just about being ruthless and finishing, and I think those goals, at least majority of them, can be credited to striker Kwasi.
You wonder just how long he can be in this league. I mean, there's going to be an opportunity here for both for him and for the club to move him along at some point. I don't know if it'll be another year or not. And he's just starting to develop he's going into the hard part. When you look at the first goal that he got the other day, that's very reminiscent of a goal he had a little bit earlier, a game or two earlier, cutting in. And that's a tough play because you're either the timing has to be so perfect. And he makes the goal. It's a tremendous feat, of course, from Soigneur. And he's working really, really well with him. And it was just a goal scorer's goal. The types of goals he's had in the last, what kind of goal hasn't he had? He's had a hard drive. He's had the loopers. He's had the little touch passes. That one, he's had the heel off.
Heel flick.
That one, yeah, and that one was a little kind of inset step. I try to slow it down to see exactly what he did there, but there was a lot of skill involved in that one too. But it was just nonchalant.
Yeah, Milty, a lot of these goals haven't been super extravagant necessarily, but as you said, right place, right time. He always gets a touch on it, whether that's a chip, a heel flick, just a tap in.
Now, not to compare the two, not at all. But you take a look at the variety of goals that Messi got, say, and the plays he made against Team Canada, for instance, and then in the World Cup as well. I mean, he can drive it. He can have that ball sit down. He'll just tap it. He'll almost toy with it at times. And Kwasi's developing that. And he was a striker when he was a kid, but really he hasn't had a lot of striking experience. And I can't imagine this success is going to keeps buoying him, and it buoys the people around him too. And of course it takes people's eyes off of, depending if they're playing at the same time or not, Anana and people like that can also do some jobs, and Borges and who do you look at here if you're trying to defend? And so then you start dropping back a little bit too much, and even then they keep working at it. The thing I like is they're hitting the net more. That's the thing. I mean, they're still missing a ton, but soccer players miss a lot because of the wall. right? I mean, the wall comes up, and they do. I mean, lots of players miss really good players miss shots. How many did, like, we'll go back to Messi? How many did Messi miss against Canada?
Hmm.
Put it over the top, and those kinds of. You just keep trying and keep trying and keep trying, and he's developed a scorer's mentality.
And to your point, Milty, this was something Coach Bobby mentioned earlier, making those movements in behind and opening up space for the middle of the pitch and all of those other dangerous players that you mentioned. While we're on the topic, who else do you have your eye out for? You talked about Nana. What did you make of his recent performances? Because he's started a couple games as of late and starting to integrate into the group now.
Yeah, he is, and I still don't think we've seen him play his best, and I think it was really good for him to get that goal, and it was again a striker's goal. I mean, he he just the ball sort of just took that dip. It had that dead ball on. He knew exactly what he was doing on that play, and it was a great three-way play, outstanding long feed from Becker, and then over Schwanier, I guess, and who did his. What he usually does was draws a whole bunch of players to him, and then 5 feet's a perfect. I mean, he was all alone there. He had time to tee it up, so he knew
Mm-hmm.
exactly what he was going to do, and I'm glad for him that it went in. I mean, you remember the one he had teed up earlier, and it kind of got plopped in
Yes.
the muck, and
Yeah.
and he topped the ball. I think that's sort of what he needs. And they he didn't sat him down one game, right? And he or didn't play a ton, and and
That's
uh,
right. Yeah.
and so I think he needs to. It's just a new league. It's a new you have to learn techniques, particularly if you're well on both ends of the field. But everybody, although the basics are the same, the manner in which they're played, and this league is a little different than any league he would have played in before, and so that's he's had to make some adjustments, and I think there's still a lot more there. I think there's a lot more there, and here's one of the problems: there's only one ball, and right? So. Uh, Yeah, but they're starting to get a definition up there a little bit, isn't it? That to see who does what. I mean, you start out early with either or if it's Nana, but usually it's Benny. Bang it, bang a hard one right
Hmm.
away, right?
Hmm.
Just to say, okay, wake up, other team. This is
Hmm.
what we're capable of, and that in a way opens up a little the finesse game too. And they got a great finesse game coming from the outside in, and it really I like it. I mean, we're talking about them right now like they're undefeated. They're not. There's still a lot of holes out there, and it's still a lot of little tiny things that just need to be a little
Yeah,
punched up a
but
little
you're
more.
right, Milty. I do think that there is this level of finesse or flair that certain players have gotten more comfortable with over the past few games, whether that's Nana, Benny, Kwasi now. With Nana, I think it was really important that he had that goal and even moments like drawing that penalty to give him that confidence that, he is capable of doing these great things. It's just a matter of getting into the rhythm and that comfortability with Forge's style of play.
That was a big play, wasn't it? I mean, in a way, because it showed how much he can move around somebody. Like he could, I think TFC is going to have their hands full when they play him in August. Because they, and that move, it was a classic move. Take the guy and then go outside him and have him beat with his speed. And so two things there: that watch it because you might have to foul him, but B, geez, you got to stay on him somehow. So
Yeah.
it's kind of a pick your poison on that one.
Hmm. Milty, I want to talk about this weekend. As I mentioned
Yeah.
earlier, Forge will head to Winnipeg to play
Hmm.
Valour. You followed this team for a long time. You've
Yeah.
seen Forge play over the past couple of years. And interestingly, despite Valour, typically being toward the bottom of the table, Forge has had some issues with them and have not consistently been successful against this team. So, what is it about Valour? They come off a 3-0 win against Pacific. So, what do you think
I
it is about
know.
this team that seems to get Forge's number in so many occasions?
Well, there's a couple of things. And Bobby, when I talked to him earlier this week, was referring to this part. Is they always have a very specific game plan, and it's not the same week to week, right? So, sorry, week to week, meaning the weeks that they play Forge. They may, but they spend that whole week working really, really, really hard on a certain way of playing, and can be different than the last time they play them. So they keep them off balance a little bit especially when they go into Winnipeg, and that's part of it, and it takes maybe Forge a while to say, okay, that's the way they're going to play us today, and then they can figure out where the holes are eventually in that. The second thing is that this ties into the whole Valour season. This whole Valour season has been dictated by the fact that they put new turf down on the field. They had to. I mean, this is what, only their fifth. This will be their sixth home game, right? They've got most of the games they have the rest of the year are at home. The turf that they played on there was not very good. It wasn't true. The balls didn't bounce true, so it had a real
Yeah.
home field advantage. It was really old and really gucky, and people wondered how they even played gridiron football on that turf. And they have a new one now, very similar to what we have in Hamilton. Well, they have to be, because it won't be FIFA level, right? So, and Bobby thinks that will help their game. It'll speed up the game for them, make the game more true. If you're the better team, which Hamilton is, then the better conditions help better teams, right? The poorer conditions help the underdogs, always.
That's right.
Almost always. So that's part of it. And they have a couple of guys that always really give them trouble. I mean, they got a tremendous left back in. I want to make sure I say his name right. Is it Stemi Antogolna?
Antonoglu, yes.
Oh, Antonoglu, right. And I mean, when you look at him, he's I think number one in assists. He's number two in tackles. He's
He's
right
dangerous in the attack too, Milty. He comes off the
that's
ball and
right.
gets specific. Yeah.
Well, look at the assists, like, and when you get to kind of play from a left back, it's really important to get that ball up. And of course, Jordan Swabell up the Australian up front, gets a bulk of their goals, and he's a guy to watch with. And their goalkeeper, I think their goalkeeping is hot and cold, but I mean, Viscosi has 3 clean sheets, so. And of course, that's something Hamilton doesn't have a lot of, is totally clean sheets. There's always that one, right? There's always that one that drops in there, and so yeah. So they're. I mean, the thing is, they give up goals, even though they've had those 3 clean sheets. You just don't want to catch him on a hot day, and you have to make sure that you make sure he isn't hot. And,
yes.
And because it's always the same when you're playing a team that's weaker than you. Establish that early. They did it last week in getting those early goals by Kwasi right off. I mean, they have 2 of them within the first 30 minutes. So, you do that, and it makes it really difficult for the other team. And if that's a team that's used to coming back or is maybe equal to you or close to it, like Atletico or even Cavalry in its better games, right? So they aren't going to get out of it. But I think some of these other teams that are lesser, so they will get out of it if you put them down early. And I think the Forge is starting to feel that. They're getting a little of that. Arrogance is the wrong word. They always have a little bit of that, because champions play with arrogance. And I don't mean that in a horrible way, but basically, hey, we're the guys, you're not, and that's the way it is.
They play like they have a target on their back, because they do. And there's 2 things that I want to mention there.
Sure.
One, it'll be interesting to see which goalkeeper the coaching staff go with on this Forward side, whether that's Jas or Chris, because Jas has collected 3 clean sheets now. So maybe they'll be more confident in his shot stopping, if that's, a key point of emphasis here. And then, as you said, Antonoglu, a very attacking left back. But Daniel Parra will return this game. How do you think that'll impact it?
Well, depending on how he is, but I he's practiced well. I mean, this has been a tough week for practice for them, just because of you've been out there. Both of us really wanted to say, geez, we'd like to put our bathing suits on or something out here, because it was unbelievable. Like, just please dump that whole Gatorade over top of me.
It is so hot.
I've never seen that team come off the field like I did yesterday. The guys, I was trying to talk to some people, they could not talk.
Yeah.
They work hard. Bobby's going to work them hard. Gave them enough water breaks. They got good training staff. They're monitoring it. They're right on top of it. But they bang the hell out of each other, really, really, really hard. So I think Daniel looked okay during all that. He was among the most drenched of anybody when he came off the field, and that's just another guy. Well, I keep looking and I'm thinking, why isn't this team close to undefeated? When I look at some of these guys, and I realize part of it is the gelling, because they're not just working players in; they're working in really good players, right? I mean, the players that they brought in, Nana, Apara would be the two that would jump out, and the development of other guys. Um, um, I
On the
mean,
do.
yeah, sure, and Malik, and just the sort of the way all of them have taken a step forward. I can see why there has been some issues, like in terms of maybe not getting everything quite right, because
Sure, finding that consistency too.
well, yeah, even players that have been here before aren't the same players as they were last year. Garvin in the middle, right? It just, what he played, he got his 100th Forge game last week, I think, and that's pretty significant, for a guy that's only been that was 2021, and for a back, he's really really developed. He's a guy that, and playing for Haiti really helps him. He's playing in some really important games, and I'm writing about him this week actually for on the Forge FC website. So yeah, it's quite interesting to see if they can meld it all and they can hold off injury. That's the big thing. Hold off. There's a lot of guys playing a lot of minutes. Alex uh, in the back, and Malcolm Duncan. I don't know that I expected to see him play as much this year,
As much
but
as he
he's
has. Yeah.
yeah. And I was a little question. I have to admit this. I was totally wrong about him.
I was just gonna say, Milty, he has been such a solid and reliable player for this team. Like he's just a wall.
I know,
He's
and
competing with Dom Samuel, right? So these guys are both.
and I think it means that whoever starts, and it's almost always lately been Malcolm. That you're going to be good for 90 minutes, because the
Yes.
other guy, if comes in, then he's going to be coming in fresh too, and with something to prove. So I really like the look of that side. That's where I thought, I just wondered about back there, and I also I had no idea that Garvin was going to be quite as strong as he has been.
Hmm.
And again, I think that's partly because of experience lately, and he's really coming into his own as a leader as well. And you've got to be back there. You need more than one leader. It can't just be Alex at the center back being the guy. And Alex, of course, is suicidal out there. He'll just throw his body in front of anything. And
Yeah.
he had a great one the other day. It could have been a key moment there that could have put Valour back in, and he made a great block on it. Not Valour, Wanderers back in, and he just made a tremendous block on. And you make a really good point about the goalkeeping. What do you think? What do you think that? I think that Chris is their guy.
I expect to see Chris, just given, the pattern we've seen in their rotation thus far.
Yeah.
But you're right, Melty. Looking at this back line, they've got options, and I think they're very comfortable in what they've built up in terms of the depth that they have in their starting 11.
Mm-hmm.
Melty, we're running out of time here, but before I let you go, anything else you expect to see in this Valour match that you think would be worth noting here?
No, I think again, when you struggle, not struggle, that's not the right word, but when you go into a place where you haven't had as much luck as you probably should, then even if they got the new turf and they're going to be confident there, I think that they just got to make sure that they take the home team out of it early, take the home crowd, whatever size it is, out of it, and just I think really if they watch the two biggest guys on their team, then I think they should be okay and clear the box better. It's funny when you look at the Forge, and I look at the clearances. Clearance is a funny stat, but that's basically if a ball's in the box, do you get rid of it, and that
Mm-hmm.
counts as a clearance. And,
Mm-hmm.
and Forge is right at the bottom of the league in terms of fewest, and that's
Interesting.
partly because it's partly because they have the ball all the time. They did a little bit differently last week, didn't they? They played a little bit more of a fallback game to kind of let people know, hey, we can play. Let the opposition know that, which was Halifax. Hey, we're going to play a little bit different game against you, but it's also a message for around the league that hey, we can play a whole bunch of different kinds of game. We'll let you possess the ball. Generally, they want to possess the ball, and then other teams will try to drop the ball in. But the fact that they only have 215 clears and some teams, I think Valour has had to clear 400 or 500 or 300 or 400 of them, right?
Yeah, Milty, what's interesting about that is you make a good point in looking at this game against Halifax. Maybe they play a little differently, but you look at the stats, and Alex Ashinoy-Johnson, for example, has, I think, between 5 and 7 clearances alone.
Yeah.
I'm going to wrap it up. Thank you so much for joining me. We got to hold ourselves accountable for next week in some way.
Fewer breaks.
Yeah.
Okay, Mac.
That will conclude today's episode. Once again, thanks to Milty for joining me. Enjoy your long weekend, but most importantly, that Forge Valour matchup on Sunday. And thank you so much for listening. I will be back to check in on the audio network next week.
This has been Forge Daily with Mackenzie Barwell. If you like what you heard, please like, follow, subscribe, comment, and share.